You're listening to Men of Abundance, episode 198, with Drew Pittman. Today, we're talking about being a first-team dad. And if you feel you're a second-teamer or woman the bench, get ready to get in the game.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What's up, Men of Abundance? I am Wally Carmichael, your founder and host of the Men of Abundance podcast, the Pay It Forward community. What an exciting and amazing day and time that we are in. I cannot believe we are 2 episodes away from hitting 200 episodes. And man, I'm going to do tomorrow the Pay It Forward Aloha Friday, which I have not done in a while. And our 200th episode is going to be a blast. I am so stoked and so excited to introduce you to yet another amazing featured guest. And it just so happens that this one's super exciting for me because, well, I'm not going to give it away. Just know I was super stoked about this conversation because this is a man who has been on my list basically since I first decided to start the Men of Abundance podcast. He's somebody I've wanted to have a conversation with. I was introduced to him by another guest who you've already heard, and I'm just completely stoked. I'm not going to give it away. You will have to wait until episode 200 launches next Tuesday. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that episode or any other episodes. And others are not going to want to miss that episode either. I'm telling you, not only is it somebody I've wanted to talk to for quite some time, this gentleman is going to blow your mind with his wisdom, his leadership, his way of life, and just who he is. Simply amazing. So, of course, make sure you're abundant in your life today by paying it forward and sharing Men of Abundance with everyone around you. And guys, today our featured guest is a first for me as well. I have never had a conversation like this with somebody who is a sports manager, more specifically an NFL manager. And guys, Drew Pittman is not your average NFL manager. Drew Pittman has always called Texas home. He was born in Lubbock and grew up in the Dallas suburb of Richardson. Drew went to SMU to play soccer for the Mustangs. He worked in the baking industry and later, upon graduation from SMU, he went into commercial real estate, and at age 29, he felt the need to change paths and pursue his desire to assist NFL players in the pursuit of their dreams. And in his role as an NFL manager, he's doing much more than helping them fulfill their dreams. He is helping players develop into great men, and to him, that is the most rewarding facet of his work, not going to the game, going on the field, or even sitting in the owner's box. Drew is the author of the book titled First Team Dad, Your Playbook for a Winning Family. And Drew took the lessons he learned from his involvement in sports, and in particular in his dealings with the NFL, and applying those lessons to leading a family. And Drew will be the first to admit he outkicked his coverage when he married the former Lane Taft, daughter of legendary Hall of Fame football coach Grant Taft, in 1994. The couple have 2 sons, Jake and Eli, and reside in North Austin in the Texas Hill Country. Men of Abundance, it is my honor to introduce you to Drew Pittman. Drew, welcome to Men of Abundance, brother. How you doing?
Hey, Wally, I'm doing great, and I really appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate what you do for men out there.
Hey, listen, and I greatly appreciate that, and I want to give a shout out to Brandon Hanley for introducing us. Yet another amazing connection that has brought 2 men together to share a message that is going to resonate and hopefully, help out some families out there.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it too.
Yeah. So where are you at in the world?
I live just north of Austin, Texas, in a small town called Salado in central Texas and the Hill Country, and been here about 12 years.
I've been all over the world. I've been around the United States quite a bit, but the Hill Country in Texas is some of the most beautiful countryside, just a beautiful area within the United States. I absolutely love it there. I spent quite a bit of time out there.
It's great. You know, when my wife and I decided to move from the Dallas area and get into a smaller community, we looked all around and picked Salado, live in a neighborhood where everybody has about 5 acres, and built my house with my office. I've got a balcony out of my office, and a lot of the days I sit out on my balcony on the phone, taking care of my business and watching the deer run around and the wild turkeys and the rabbits, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I dig that out there. A lot of open space too. That's something that I do miss out here on this island of Oahu. Is there's some open space, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
So before we get too much into our conversation, I like to start out with an attitude of gratitude, man. What do you have to be grateful for today, other than being out there in the beautiful hill country?
Well, I think the big picture is I'm grateful for life. It's an opportunity to go out and affect other people's lives for the better, and I'm thankful for my family. I've got an awesome wife, Lane Taft Pittman, and 2 amazing boys, Jake and Eli, and I'm really thankful for that. I'm thankful for my extended family, and it's probably the thing that I'm most thankful for.
Wonderful. As we get into this conversation, before we do, we kind of like to get to know the man behind the abundance. So I want you to do this for me. How would you describe yourself?
It's an interesting question because I don't really love talking about myself, but I would say I'm a type A people person. I love getting to know new people. It's one of the cool things about my job. Being a NFL agent, I get to meet a whole lot of people. I don't sign all the players that I meet, but I always make a lot of great friends. And it's funny how the world works. And I may not sign a guy, but then down the road, he ends up working for a team, and we have a great relationship still. And so I'm a type A people person.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I don't know that I'm completely type A, but I do love meeting people. It's just, I love talking to people. I love finding out where they're from. Part of the reason why I do this show, see where they're from, what they do for a living, how they contribute to humanity. And it's just an intriguing, I just meet so many amazing people. But how does somebody get into being an NFL agent? That is intriguing to me.
Well, my joke is that I got hit on the head and lost my mind. But 26 years ago, I had been working for a company and had actually knew I was doing it, but had worked myself out of a job. And previously, I went to SMU and played on the soccer team at SMU, and I was there during the Pony Express days with Eric Dickerson and Craig James and Lance McElhaney and Michael Carter and all those guys. And so I got to be good friends with a lot of them. Our locker room was right next to theirs, and I saw them come out and go into the NFL, and it just seemed like they were a commodity to these firms that were supposed to be managing their careers and helping them along the way. And it seemed like all they really looked at the player as was an asset. And I felt like, there's got to be a place in this industry for somebody who's going to care about the person and take a more personal approach. I didn't set out to take over the world and become the biggest agent in the world. I just wanted to have a positive effect on the young men who God put in my life. And it's been awesome. 26 years now I've been doing it. The industry's changed a lot. I had opportunities to maybe get into other sports, and I decided to stick with football. I do represent some coaches, and I've helped out some front office people in NFL organizations and helped them kind of get to where they are, but not officially represented them. And so it's been cool, but I think getting into it, I really feel like you have to be called to be in this business, because if you're not going to last. And I've seen a lot of people come and go over the 26 years.
Man, I can imagine. That's a long time to be in that industry, and you must really keep it really on a level keel. Hence the reason why you've written your book that we'll get into here in just a minute, because from what I know of the industry, other than the movies and what you see on the movies and stuff, I've met a couple other guys that are in the industry or were in the industry anyway and got out because it can be stressful unless you really have, kind of a balance in your life. And I don't believe there's ever really a true balance. There's more of a counterbalance, if you will. But you've at least got it together enough to be able to maintain your sanity and maintain, not have
that's
a stroke.
debatable.
Right, exactly, right. Agreed. You have to be slightly insane to do some of these jobs for sure,
right.
But you've done it for so long, and then you've got just an amazing family as well, and writing a book and doing everything else you have going on. That's impressive, dude.
Well, I appreciate it. I think, again, the person that I am, I anything that's good that I've been able to do, I feel like it's because God's kind of pointed me in the right direction and kept to the guardrails up so I didn't get too far off base, and gave me a heart for family, and because of that, I always felt like I could go out and have some good clients and make a good living. Everybody thinks all sports agents are super rich, and if they knew the real finances behind the industry, they would laugh at all of us. But I didn't really care about the money part. I felt like if I was really good at what I did and I helped enough people get what they wanted, that I'd have plenty. And it's been the case. And there were times when I had to choose between going out and trying to secure another client or going to my kids' games, and I chose my kids' games all the time. Mm-hmm. I chose, taking my wife. We have date night every week. That's more important to me than becoming the biggest name in the business.
Well, look, here's the thing, guys, and what Drew is talking about here that I 100% agree with, and you just got to see the pattern of the guys that I have conversations with here on Men of Abundance, and that is, when you put money first, you're prone to make the wrong decisions, and you're prone to put your time in the wrong areas. In contrast to that, when you do like Drew was talking about and put your priorities first, family first, not necessarily your selfish priorities, but make your priorities, make family first, make your clients, put some care into what you're doing, and that you truly care about your clients regardless of what it is that you're doing, then you're more prone to make the right decisions and be able to sleep better at night. And then the money will come. Like Jim Rohn says, the more people you help get what they want, then you'll get more than you even expected. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like that, so I did it. Yeah. And so we're going to get into your book, First Team Dad, your playbook for a winning family, here in just a minute. But before we do that, as you know, because you've listened to a couple episodes, we like to get into that kick in the gut moment, if only to just show that, one, we all get kicked down. They may be different. We all have different kick in the gut moments, but they're so similar in the fact that there's two choices you can make. You can either learn from it and move on and actually make something of it, or you can let it beat you down and just wander through life, as a kicked puppy dog type of thing. So if you would, share with us that kick in the gut moment and really make us feel that.
Well, you might have to edit this, but I think the kick is a little bit lower than the gut.
And those happen too. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's so many of them in life, and I would say there were probably a couple of real in my life, real kick in the gut moments. That one was when I was 8 years old, and my parents brought my sister and I in and said they were getting a divorce. And it was back in the late 60s, and not everybody was getting divorced back then. So that was a little bit of a kick in the gut moment. But I'll tell you, my parents, if there's ever a way to divorce the right way, they did it. And they were amazing, and they stayed friends, and they never used us against each other. And so we rebounded from that very, very easily. The second time was probably, I would say, when in this business, you keep trying. I mean, getting over the hump and where you feel like you've made it is really tough to do. Where you really actually start making money and can pay your bills from doing the business, and you think you've made it, but you come to find out the young guys in the business, if they stay, this is usually where they get out of it. They think they've made it, and then they get that kick in the gut where a player leaves them for somebody else, or a guy that was making a bunch of money gets cut or gets renegotiated. And so there's been a lot of those. And I think the first couple of times that happened was when I was first trying to get over the hump. And I literally, I was driving to a meeting. I kind of felt like I was just about to get there, and I was driving to meet with a player, and I was supposed to go there to sign him to become my client. And he was going to be about a third-round pick, and it was going to be one of my highest drafted players. And I'm literally halfway out, outside of town on my way to see him, and he calls and says, "Hey, don't come." And he says, I signed with somebody else last night. And it was a kick in the gut. And I pulled over on the side of the road, and I was probably sobbing and just crying out to God, just saying, I thought this is where you wanted me. Why is this happening? I feel like I'm just about to turn the corner, and now I'm knocked down. And the thing that I learned from that was you can either throw in the towel and say, okay, or you can, and for me, I just asked God to guide me. And I just said, hey, if this isn't where you want me, I will do anything else that you want me to do. And I put it in his hands, and man, it wasn't 2 weeks later that some things started happening that I didn't expect, that I didn't work hard to make happen. And the doors just opened up to me, and I did get over the hump, and I did keep going.
Yeah, I dig that. I dig that story, and I can feel that. I can feel that so much, that kick in the gut moment when that potential client just turns away and goes another route. And it's hard to turn around from that. It's hard to not blame and say, instead of saying, God, what do you have for me? And otherwise saying, why are you doing this to me? Why, just blaming, quite frankly. And
sure,
nothing happens to us. It all happens for us. It's hard to believe that in the moment. It truly is. I get that because I've been there too many times. I've lost both my parents, one tragically, one to cancer. I've lost friends. I've lost friends to suicide. I've lost friends. I've been through so much adversity in my life, and I could literally be down and just, give up on life. But hey, I had that time with those people, and, all the adversities that happened in my life, we just got to look at a good, look at the other side of it. So it's hard. I get it.
And that's such a great thing to share with guys, because everybody goes through it, and we all go through it numerous times. And when we think, we've been kicked in the gut as many times as a human can possibly take, here comes another one. And so, I always say it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to what happens to you. Mm-hmm. And if we'll look for the lessons, then we can grow so much more from the kick in the gut than we can from a success, because there's just so many more lessons to be learned.
And this feeds right perfectly into what we were talking about before we started recording here, and that is the importance of these men's groups. And Brandon has his group for fathers, and there's other groups out there for fathers, and there's groups out there for men, and I have the Men of Abundance community on Facebook. And we were talking about the importance of these groups and how really society has conditioned us to isolate us. And I love what you were saying about that before we got started here.
Yeah, I really feel like the world, the scheme of the world is to isolate men, because it's easy to do. We're, most of us are brought up that, to be a man, you got to be tough, and that means you don't cry, and you put your face in the cold north wind, and you press on, and you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and all those cliches. But the fact of the matter is, we need dudes to do life with. And if you don't have your dudes to do life with, you're gonna get off on your own, and things are gonna happen, and you're not gonna know how to deal with it. And then, I mean, we can get disoriented very easily if you don't have that guy that goes, hey man, snap out of it. A great story in my life is when I moved down here to Salado. My wife had recently been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and if you don't know what it is, it's a debilitating autoimmune disease. She would struggle to even get up out of bed, and we're building a house, we're moving, and I really was starting to feel just sorry for myself. And so I called my best friend who lived up in Dallas, and I said, dude, come down here and just hang out with me for a weekend. We can sit out on the porch and cook steaks on the grill and hang out. And he came down, and, I started sharing with him, how all the stuff that was going on and how it was affecting my business because I couldn't work. I had young kids at the time, and one in school and one that wasn't in school, and how could I go work? And we're building a house. I was whining, and I wanted him to go, oh man, it's okay. I'm here with you. And he goes, look, I don't know what you're whining about. Everybody's got stuff. He said, you gotta, suck it up and do what you can do. And, trust that God's got an answer for you. And, I'm here, if you need to talk, you need to vent, call me. But I wanted somebody to just, jump in the pit and wallow with me, and he snapped me at it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I get in these groups. I just joined another mastermind. In fact, because you kind of grow out of certain masterminds, if you will. You don't grow out of your friends, and you don't grow out of some of these, those guys in your life that are doing that. But I try to get into these different masterminds and kind of see how, they're working with other guys. And I'm just amazed at how many guys really are getting it. And they're coming together in story after story, time after time. There's a guy who's, was 400 something pounds and lost 180 pounds as a result of being in one of these groups. Or
wow, that's awesome.
Find it. Yeah, amazing, right? And it's not a weight loss group. It's not a weight loss group. And you got these guys that are like, they couldn't find a job, or they couldn't find a fulfilling job that they really felt like they could take their soul to work with. Yep. And they just get into these groups, and guys start talking to them, and they're like, dude, you don't realize the skills you have. You're underselling yourself. That's why you can't get a fulfilling job. You're trying to get these jobs that you think you qualify for. You need to start walking into some doorways and saying, hey, look, here's my skills. Here's what I got to offer you. I know you got these positions. I would love to work for you. I know your company. I know your people, and just have the balls to do that. And these guys are behind that saying, you got this, dude. This is where you need to go. I mean, better jobs, better in their business, better in their relationships with their spouses. Unbelievable. Yeah. And better relationship with the kids.
Yeah. That's amazing. But we got to have that community. Mm-hmm. And, it's not weakness to reach out to somebody and go, hey, I need help. I'll call somebody and go, hey man, you need to slap me around a little bit, mm-hmm. Because I'm going down this trail that I know is not the right trail. Pull me back. And that's what we can do for each other.
Yeah, I've seen guys going down the wrong path, hanging around with some, I've been in deployment situations where guys are hanging out with certain female soldier, and I'm like, I'll pull them aside and say, look, dude, what are you doing? And they're like, what do you mean? We're just like, I'm helping her study for the board or something like that. I'm like, no, you're not. I'm your wife. Explain to me why you're with this individual, at midnight.
Yeah.
Explain to me. I'm your wife. You don't have an explanation.
Right.
Knock it out. Knock it off type of stuff. So yeah, absolutely. We definitely need that. And here's the thing, guys. We've been bamboozled. I grew up watching John Wayne. I grew up watching all these old Westerns and, all these heroes that we see on TV. And where are guys like that in your community? They don't exist. And if they do, they're lonely bastards. They're just not likable men. I'll bring it up. My stepdad was that John Wayne figure. And he really had a kind heart. when it all came down to it, he had a kind heart, but his demeanor towards people was standoffish, and people didn't like him for it. People didn't get close to him for it. And my mom saw that in him, and I eventually saw that in him as well. He was my stepdad, and my parents divorced, and that was hard for me as well. And went and married this guy, and it was the best thing my mom could have ever done. I'll just say that for the record, but for her personally. But that's how he was, and it's not the way you want to be. Your kids end up not caring for you, not liking you as much as they should, and it's all in the movies. Be a real man, get connected with other guys, and have a better relationship with your spouse and your families. Don't be so standoffish. Don't try to be that hero you see on TV, because that's not real.
Yeah, being a dad, being a husband, being a friend, it's not a scene from a movie. It's totally different.
Absolutely, it's not exactly. So let's get into. I am really intrigued to learn more about First Team Dad, because I have not gotten into this book. I've got so many books on my list, and I kind of prioritize them based on where I'm at in the world. But this is one that really is up my alley that I really want to get into, because I love this subject. How did that come about, and what can we get out of First Team Dad?
Well, I'll give you the short story about how it came about. I was coming down from my office at the landing on the stairs. I looked into the kitchen, and we have an open kitchen into the living room, and we have a countertop, and my boys were sitting at the counter, and they were eating already, and my wife was in there cooking, and they were laughing and joking. And I literally had to sit down, and I was like, when I decided to get married and have kids, I was like, I'm not going to be a good husband. I'm not going to be a good dad. I'm going to be great. I'm going to do things that other guys don't do. And I looked at them at that moment, and my boys were 10 and 12, and I was like, my oldest is going to be out of the house in 6 years. And in 3 years, he's going to listen to about half of what he's listening to right now. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I got to start now. And so in my quiet times in the morning, I just would ask the Lord to show me, things that I could do to be great. And I was like, I'll do anything. You just got to show me. And I really feel like most guys are like this. They're like, they want to be great husbands. They want to be great dads. We just don't know how. We don't know the things to do to be great. We know we got to love them. We know we got to provide for them. We know we got to protect them. The simple things, but that's being good. And so I started a list of just things that I felt like were things I could try and use and to be better. And most of them were things that I learned from sports, principles that we learn in football or in basketball or whatever sport you play. And so I started implementing some of those things, and I started noticing a change. And it was really cool. And so, again, it's like I told you before we started recording, I didn't set out to write a book, but I looked at that list, and there were 31 items on that list. And I was like, wow, that's almost like, one a day for a month. Mm-hmm. And so I just started kind of journaling on what I was doing, how I was using the principles, and then, kind of what was happening. And then I was like, man, I'm going to take each one of these as a chapter, and I'm going to write, and it may just be for me. But I said, if this is what if this is supposed to be a book, then, you got to open some doors. And doors started opening, and I met a guy who had just written a book. He was Ken Coleman. I don't know if you know who Ken Coleman is. He moderates Dave Ramsey's show, and he was a part of the Catalyst Leadership podcast. And I went to Atlanta, and I met Ken, and he had just written a book, and he goes, man, you got to meet Jonathan Merritt. He's the guy that helped me. And so I talked to Jonathan. He goes, send me what you got. And I sent it to him, and I expect him to call me back and say, don't quit your day job. But he called me back and said, hey, you know what? I think there's something here. And so we got together, and before I knew it, he got me an agent, and then the agent got me a publishing deal. And I was fortunately, Tony Dungy is one of my good friends, and Coach Dungy agreed to write the foreword for me. And it ended up being a book. But it was a cool process because I was learning as I went.
So, what is the premise of the book? What are guys going to get out of it? And is it just for guys?
I've had a lot of women read it and contact me and say, "Man, I know you wrote this for dads and husbands, but this was hugely helpful for me." And so, what some of the women have said is that, it's helped them understand where they went wrong in their first marriage and help them be able to identify who their mate should be, what they should look like. And it's one of the things that, that I've tried to teach my boys is, you have to know what you're looking for if you're going to get what you want. And it's nowhere is it more evident than picking a mate. And so I've tried to help them identify those things. But I think what guys will get from this, and I'll all you guys out there listening, I'll tell you this. So, most guys are like, I don't have time to read, and we don't, even though we know it's important. So I wrote this book for guys like me because I don't have time to read either. But every chapter is about 3 to 5 pages. It starts off with a story about the principle that something, behind the scenes in either the NFL or college football, the agent world, that something that's personal to me, something that happened to me. And I tell that story, it relates to the principle, and then I talk about how that principle relates to you and being a leader in your family. And then, I've got a lot of books that I've read where I get through with them and I go, wow, that's really great stuff, but I have no idea how to make that real in my life.
Right.
And so at the end of each chapter, I put what I call the game plan. And it's 3 to 5 bullet points on here's how you make this happen in your home. And so each chapter you can read in 5 to 10 minutes. And then you have a way to take it and go, okay, you could take the book and you could take, 30 months to read it and take one principle and then look at the game plan and then start implementing it in your home. And I've had guys that said, look, I only implemented like 3 to 5 of these principles, but it has changed my family's life. I've had wives contact me and say, my husband read your book and he is a new man. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing to me. I don't care if it's, like I told you before, I don't care if 100 guys read it, and if it changes 100 homes. And that's really what I wrote it for, was to change my home, and then felt like, it should be shared. And if it changes, a half a dozen guys' homes, then it's been worth it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I dig it. And I love the structure that you're describing because anytime I'm reading a book like that, like, I love the Robert Kiyosaki series and all that kind of stuff, but it always talked about why you got to do this and why you should do that. But the actual original book, and he got into it much later, but it didn't really say, okay, I know why I need the 4 quadrants, but how? What do I do next? What are the steps type of thing, And I love the action steps, and the game plan is right in line with the whole theme of the book. It's amazing. I'm really looking forward to getting into that myself.
Well, I look forward to hearing how it has affected you.
Absolutely. Is it out on audio yet?
It is.
Awesome.
It is, and it's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. I think several. I mean, you can Google it. And
yeah, perfect. Because what I do a lot of the times is I'll get a book on audio first and I'll listen to it. And in a book just like yours, like you're describing, if it's got those action steps in it and whatnot, I don't feel like writing them down. I'll buy the hard copy, usually the hard copy, sometimes the digital, but I'm more a hard copy type of book, and I'll use it for notes, and I'll keep it as a journal type of thing, write my own notes in it, and then tab it and highlight it and all that good stuff. So, and you can do that with digital too. It's just something about the hard book that I really love.
Yeah. Well, it's paperback, and so it's and that's the other thing is I wanted it to be affordable, and I want it to be something that every guy, you don't even have to be a sports guy to get into it, because the principles are things that really anybody will look at and go, hey, this makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, and I'm not a sports guy. I'm not the type of guy that sits down and watch games all year long. I like the Super Bowl, the World Series. I love the Olympics, the World Cup. I dig all that, but I just can't sit and watch sports all day and get to know all these guys. Like, it's actually your job to get to know these guys. I know guys out here that know all the guys' injuries and all their mistresses and, how many times they've been arrested or – I'm like, I don't need to know all that stuff, man. I got other things going on in my life. But, hey, more power to you guys. But I do dig sports, and I love the strategy of the whole bit, and I get how it completely relates to family life, and I love how you've done that.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're at the point of the show where we're going to pay it forward. You ready to do that, man?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So share 1 to 3 actionable steps. One of the things I love to do, sharing actionable steps. Share 1 to 3 actionable steps with men of abundance that they can take today.
I think for me, I'm like I said, I'm type A, and I'm very organized. I always have a plan. My wife's like, whenever we're getting ready to go do something, she goes, "What's your plan?" I know you got one. But I think one of the best things that we can do as men to not be distracted and to not be bouncing around out there is to try and create some discipline in our lives to, like I told you before, I'm a Christian, whatever, wherever you find your, spirituality is, up to you. But I start off with time in the Bible and in prayer. And I pray for my family, and I pray for my friends, and I pray for our country. And it's not, for me, it's about praying for others and not, so often we go and it's like, oh God, I need this, I need that. It's about me. But so, start with something like that. I feel like exercise is huge. So, I encourage everybody, I can't run. I used to run. I can't run anymore because of my knees. So I got into cycling. Find whatever it is for you, even if it's going for a walk in your neighborhood and, just appreciating, the creation, is something I think is important. And then, I also feel like, the things that we plan into our lives are the things that we're gonna really focus on. And I always say, look at your calendar and look at your checkbook, and I'll tell you what's important to you. And so, I think if guys will be intentional, and I talk about that a lot in the book, is being intentional about doing things with your kids, doing things with your spouse. My wife and I have date night. In fact, tonight's date night. We're going to celebrate Valentine's Day tonight, and the kids are going off to a basketball game with their uncle. And but you got to be intentional about that. You got to plan these things because this world is busy. I always say that if the enemy can't get you to do bad stuff, he's going to keep you busy so you won't do what you should be doing. And you get off track. And so be intentional about planning things. I take each one of my boys on a one-on-one trip once a year, just me and them. And then, I take my wife out of town a couple of times, just me and her. You don't have to, we'll go down to Austin, which is 30 minutes away, and get a hotel and go to a nice dinner and just hang out with each other. And so, those are things where I think those are actionable steps that you can take.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love all of those actionable steps. One of the things I do want to highlight, because I've talked about some of those, but just what's going on today. You started out with talking about, I think you said something about being focused and before you talk about being really intentional. And what I see going on today, I see a lot of guys trying to do so many different things. And I'm talking specifically about making an income. And they're bouncing from one thing to another. And I follow this guy that I've known for years. He's extremely wealthy, very wealthy, but he's got a couple brick and mortar businesses. And he's always doing something. He started out, I first met him with this multi-level marketing, but he was doing LinkedIn marketing and stuff like this. And showing you how to build your business. Next thing, he jumps over to another business, and people follow him. And then now he jumped over like 5 or 6 things over the last couple of years. Now his big thing is he's telling everybody to jump on cryptocurrency, which is great. But the thing is all these people are following him. He's very, very wealthy, and he's got the time and the resources to jump around like that. But he's got these people following him, and they're diluting themselves completely, and they're literally frustrated and getting nowhere. And I see it in the comments of his Facebook feeds when he's doing his live videos. And they're so frustrated, but they follow him blindly. And he's a great guy. He's a Christian. He's got an amazing family. He's not realizing where he's at in the world, and he's leading all these other people that are following him and trust him. And rightfully so, but they need to stick to one plan, and he needs to point that out. Stick to one of these things until you seek success. Focus is follow one course until success, because they're diluting themselves and they're just getting nowhere, and it's so frustrating to watch these people in that situation.
Totally agree. And it's easy to do in this world because there's so many things out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just got to find your one thing.
Yeah, and one of the things I'll say to that end is I always I think I stole this from Ken Coleman, but I say that your sweet spot is the intersection of your passion and your giftings. And so there's things outside of our sweet spot. But, try and find your sweet spot, where things that you're passionate about, but also things that you're gifted in. Mm-hmm. I've got a really nice Taylor guitar sitting on a stand in my office, and I love music. I have no aptitude for it. I've tried to learn how to play that guitar for years, and I just am not very good. I joke that God's the only one that thinks I sing anything that sounds good at all, because I can't sing. But I've got all these friends in the music business. I've got all these friends, that can play instruments, and it's just not my thing. So it's a passion, but it's not a gifting. Yeah. And so just find that place where your passion intersects with your gifting, and that is your sweet spot.
Very good. Amazing way to roll that all in and sum it up. So what daily habits make the biggest impact in your life, Drew?
The things I just told you. I think people get addicted to different things. I'm addicted to exercise. If I don't do something, like if I miss one day, I'm okay. But if I miss 2 days, man, I'm grumpy. I don't feel good. I'm out of sorts. But the other thing is, I feel like if I don't get up and get in the Word and spend time with my Lord, then I also get off track. So those are really the two main things. And then the third one, like I said, is just making sure that I spend time with my family. And I've been blessed to be in a business where I can make my own hours, and I've coached both my boys in all their sports growing up, and still am able. They play only basketball now, and so I've been able to coach their the varsity basketball team when they're not in the UIL stuff. And so it's just but I made that a priority, and I was always there, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, are you coaching again?" I was like, "Yep, I sure am." So those are the things that are daily. They can't be, for me, they can't be weekly, they can't be monthly, they can't be every now and then. They got to be daily habits.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. And then eventually those habits turn into who you are. And
absolutely.
You're doing them, don't even realize it. It's just habit, like you said. So We've already mentioned First Team Dad. You've already mentioned a couple times the Word, the Bible. What other books would you recommend that our abundant leaders read or listen to, and why?
I think anything from Tony Dungy, but I really like his book on servant leadership. Really anything John Maxwell or Jim Rohn, like you said. I'm a kind of a leadership junkie, and it comes from being around coaches, a lot of coaches, and I love coaching coaches. But I think as a leader, so many people want to lead because they think that everybody serves them. But really, if you're a good leader, you're serving others. And you talked about the guy who's, kind of leading people all over the place. That's not real leadership. And I don't know who he is, and I'm not bagging on him. I'm just saying, we have to know who we're leading and what they need in order to lead them well.
Agreed. I completely agree with that. And that's part of the reason why I brought it up. So what do you feel holds most people back from living a life of true abundance?
I would say probably two things. I think one is belief in themselves, but I think that comes from, I always say you gotta know who you are, you gotta know where you're going in order to know how to get there, and knowing who you are is identity. And we look for our identity in so many things, and I deal with it a lot with NFL players because it's easy for their identity to be a football player. That's who they are. But I try and help them understand that that's not who they are. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. And there is a big difference between what you do and who you are. And so finding your identity as, whether it be as a child of God, a husband and a father, but having that core sense of who you are, and then believing in your abilities and taking the risk to go out. You talked about it earlier. You've got to take risk to go out and do it. When I decided that I was supposed to write a book, I told everybody I knew, "Hey, did I tell you I'm writing a book? Hey, I'm writing a book." Every person. And the reason I did that was so that I would not chicken out, because then I would know everybody would be going, "What happened to your book?" And I didn't want to answer that question. And so take risk. And you know what? The other thing, and it's one of my chapters in the book, is it's okay to fail. Was it Einstein said he's never failed? He just figured out a million ways how not to do something. Mm-hmm. And so that's, don't be afraid to fail. Failing is okay, because if you learn from it, like we talked about earlier, then you've been successful in your failure.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny. I literally just did. I'm going to post today. I didn't do my Pay It Forward Aloha Friday yesterday, or I didn't post it anyway, but I did a Facebook Live video in the Men of Abundance community about that very thing, about failure. And we won't get too much into it here, but I did want to bring it up since you said that. I was listening to another coach, and she defined failure and then completely explained the whole process around failure, but not really paying attention to the definition, which is the omission of expected or required action. So by that definition, and I haven't actually had this conversation with anybody other than what I had, put out on the Facebook, and I haven't gone back to look at the comments yet, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. The omission of expected or required action, which to me means you're only failing if you don't take action. It doesn't say the omission of expected or required results. So if you're not taking action, you're failing. If you are taking action, by definition, you are not failing. You may not be getting the results you want, but that just comes from the learning process. What you're doing is you're learning by taking action. You're not failing.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I love that. Because it is so true. And if if your desired result is X and you take action and you don't get the desired result, well, then that's one way that doesn't work. Right. And so then you go and you try the next way, and it leads you so many times in my life, things that I've tried that didn't work led me to something that did work. And if I hadn't tried it, I would have never known what did work.
And then on top of that, and chances are, because this has happened to me and many others, is it led you to something you didn't even realize that you would enjoy doing, because it took you down a different path entirely.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So what does living a life of abundance mean to you, Drew?
I think it's pursuing excellence in everything that I do, and not measuring the results, but measuring the behaviors that lead to results. And so, whether it be as a husband, as a dad, as a NFL agent, as a speaker, I've gone and spoken to big groups, and everybody comes up afterwards and goes, "Oh man, that was so great." And then I've gone and I don't get anybody saying, "Hey, that really meant a lot to me." And I go, "Oh, I probably didn't do so well then." But I'm not measuring the results. I'm measuring the behaviors that lead to results. And so, it's to me, that's what living an abundant life is trying to be the best you that you can be, not trying to be somebody else, trying to figure out what you were created for. And we all have a purpose. I talk to so many guys that want to be NFL players, and they've worked their whole lives to be NFL players. And I'm like, God's got a plan for your life, and you have been, faithful to pursue what you thought it was, but you probably now need to look at, what it really might be. And I always talk about, I played soccer at SMU in college, and I, of course, like most other guys who go to college and play sports, they want to be a pro. And so I thought, man, I'm going to go play professional soccer. And I had a marginal college career, was just kind of a guy on the team, was never a star. And, I realized that the plan for me was something different. And that's probably what led me to become a sports agent. Again, I met some of those guys at SMU, and I saw what happened to them. And so there's always something. And so if you want to live an abundant life, strive for what you want, get some divine guidance along the way, every step along the way, and, have fun in the journey, because, you blink and it's over. And, I think the worst thing that can happen to anybody is to be towards the end of their life and go, wow, I missed it. And I've just always said that's not going to be me. I might say, man, I really messed up in a lot of places, but it's not going to be that I was sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah,
get in the game.
Absolutely, get in the game. Life is not a spectator sport.
Nope.
Awesome. So what did we not talk about today that you'd like to ensure that our abundant leaders get out of our conversation, Drew? We talked about quite a bit. You
were very thorough. Yeah. I think we hit it all. I think the main things are, be in community. Don't allow yourself to get isolated. Take chances. Figure out what you like and what you're gifted at. Go for it. Don't worry about failing. Strive to be the best you can be. While you're doing some amazing things, you're doing things that I'm not gifted to do. So I shouldn't try and be you, and you shouldn't try and be me, and we should, both. We should connect with our brothers and sow into other people's lives. I think, more than anything, I just say people need to sow into other people's lives. It's become such a me world, and it's as evident in sports as it is anywhere. But the amazing opportunity that we have to sow our life into other people's lives is just something that gets lost on so many people. So sow into other people's lives, and I think you'll see just how abundant life can be when you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely wonderful. So, brother, we're going to close this up. We already mentioned it. You can find your book, First Team Dad, Your Playbook for a Winning Family, on Amazon and other locations. I'll have any of those linked up in the show notes at menofabundance.com. And man, it's been a great conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to put out there as far as how they can get our guys and some of the ladies, in fact, can get in contact with you or get a hold of your book?
Yeah, I would say I would love for when social media has become the new thing, not necessarily new, but, it's how we all communicate. And, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitter at DP Football Agent. And I would say, go follow me, and I'm going to turn around and follow you back. And that's, we can really start to get to know what everybody's about. And I take so many things that I implement into my life from that. In fact, I was just watching a little clip from the Connecticut women's coach, Jean, I think it's pronounced Ariyama. Amazing coach, amazing, the best women's college basketball program. But he was talking about body language. And I sent that to I don't know how many people, just going, you got to watch this. This is so important. And it's not just about sports. It's, when you go into work, guys are coming back going, oh, I never get the promotion, and I always get passed up, and life's not fair. And I'm like, but you're walking in and your body language is terrible. So I get so much from all these tweets and posts that I see on other things. So go on there and follow me if you're on it. DP Football Agent, Twitter and Instagram is the same. Join my First Team Dad Facebook page, and let's share information because we're all going to be better from it. I'm not saying go get on there so you can hear what I have to say. I'm saying get on there so I can then turn around and follow you and hear what you have to say.
Excellent. Absolutely love it. Yeah, and I already got on, requested to get into the Facebook group there, Facebook page. So, guys, I'll have all that linked up in the show notes, so you can just go there and check it out and get linked up with Drew. Drew, I greatly appreciate the conversation, man. It was amazing, as I knew it would be. Go out and live your life of abundance and keep paying it forward, brother. Aloha.
Wally, you're a stud, man. I appreciate you, and it's been a blast.
All right. Take care. All right, guys, there you have it. That's your game plan for a winning family, and much more. I think there was a lot of great lessons to learn from that conversation. I will certainly be going back and listening to that one again. And yes, I actually do listen to my own show. I listen to it because I love to hear the conversations. And just like reading a good book or watching a great movie, you always find something new that you didn't realize before. I get new insights every time I listen to one of my episodes and listen to these conversations over again. So I suggest you go back and listen to this again, but hey, I'm happy that you listened to it once. Now, go out and live your life of abundance and make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.